Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my January wrap-up. So January already started out pretty well. I feel like January flew by, like I really don't know where it went, which makes me nervous for February, because February also tends to fly by. So yeah, it's been crazy. I read 5 books in January. Let's get into them. The first book that I picked up this year was Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. I've already done a full review on this book, so I will leave that on the screen. This is the first book in an adult science fiction series, and this series is so vast and complex and different that you really just need to watch the review, because I said it a lot more succinctly than I possibly could here, but I really ended up enjoying this book. This book is so hard to review and even give a star rating to because of all the complexities and the way that it's written and the narrator and all this stuff that make it so, like, did I enjoy that? Like, what exactly? There's certain things about it that I didn't enjoy because, like, but I enjoyed the reading process. Go watch my review. I honestly think, and I don't say this for all my reviews, I don't say this ever, but I think everyone should go watch my review for this if you're even slightly interested in adult science fiction, because you need to, like, watch that to kind of get if you would like this. But I think a lot of people should read this book because I think it's a really interesting book to discuss. As long as you don't like things in black and white, and you're okay with some gray area in your fiction, this is good. This is for you. I gave this 4 stars based on quality of the book and enjoyment level, but like quality of the book, it's 5 stars. I just couldn't quite give it 5 stars because there's things about it that it's like, that's not enjoyable to read. Go watch my review. You'll kind of get it there. I then picked up The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. This is the second book in the Winternight trilogy, which is an adult fantasy trilogy that's based on Eastern European folklore mythology. Like I said, this is the second book. I've done a review for this as well, so I'll leave that on the screen. I really enjoyed this, just like I enjoyed the first one. This book has a lot of things that I like about Eastern European folklore mythology now that I've read more books about that topic and having those themes in it, so I really liked that. I really enjoy our main character. She is independent and has a fierceness to her, and I just really enjoy her as a character, and I like all of the, like, magic that's mixed in. This book had a lot more political intrigue stuff than the first book did in the series, so it was kind of interesting because the first book was much more dominated by the magic bits. This was much more dominated by the political bits, and I think the third book will be like an even mix of both. And this also has the death and the maiden trope, which I am weak for, as you know. Hades, Persephone, that kind of thing. So really enjoy the dynamic there, and I just really enjoy this series. I'm looking forward to finishing it. I don't know when I will, though, because the reason I took so long to read this book, because I read the last book like the end of 2017, is because I want to get them on paperback. And Winter of the Witch, which is the last book, just came out in hardcover. And I want to read this in the winter because it's so fun to read this like in January, and it's cold, and it just fits. That just fits the theme. So I don't know when I'll get to the last one, but I would love to, but maybe next winter. We'll see. So I decided to kind of embrace that Eastern European folklore mythology Russian feel to things for almost this entire month. The next book that I read was Wicked Saints by Emily Duncan. This is the first book in a YA gothic fantasy trilogy. I was sent a copy of an arc of this book from the publisher for review because they found out that I was squawking about it everywhere, so they sent me a copy, which, thank you. But this comes out in April. I have already filmed a full review and discussion, which will be coming out closer to book's release, because at this point, not enough people have read it. It's not even fair to put that out there yet, and doing a closer release will be good. So, that has my full thoughts. With all that being said, this book I felt so much conflict about, because overall it was disappointing for me, but there are a number of reasons that I think that is. One is that I followed Emily online for like years, so I have heard about this book and have been anticipating this book in my head for years, and I had certain ideas about the ways that this book was going to go. This book is marketed and everyone knows that this is a villain main character love interest dynamic going on in this book, along with a lot of blood magic and a lot of goth things. But that is one of the main selling points of this book for a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people are picking it up and everything like that. So I had an idea of what I wanted and what I personally like out of the villain main character dynamic. I got some of that, but I didn't get all of it the way that I thought I was going to, so it didn't quite meet my expectations in that way. I did think some of the plot elements were a little bit weak, a little bit muddled, but there was also some plot things I really liked. There are also some scenes with the main character and the villain that were really good, and the aesthetic of all the blood and gore was really good, really spoke to me. If you are at all triggered by self-harm, blood, gore, torture, anything like that, do not read this. If blood freaks, don't read this. There's blood magic in this. Like, don't even go close. If you're cool with that, and if you like that whole aesthetic, you're probably gonna love this. But yeah, I really love it for the aesthetic. I love it for some of the character stuff. I was disappointed in it for some of the character stuff, and I was disappointed in it from some of the plot stuff. But still, overall enjoyed it. Still was a good read. Really looking forward to the rest of the series and the foundation that this is built and where it's going and to learn more things. And still, I think is going to be like a very highly loved book. But I gave this 3.5 stars. Some days I feel like it's 3.75, but kind of 3.5, that range for me. Not quite a 4. I then picked up Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. This was my Patreon book pick for the month. So if you're not aware, my Patreon supporters get to vote in a poll every month for a book that I will read and review that month. If you're interested in participating in my channel in that way, I will leave my Patreon on the screen, and this one for this month, but also I was like, blood magic, death magic, woo, because this is all like a necromancy book. This is the first book in a YA fantasy duology, and it follows our main character, who is a girl that's going to become an alchemist, and she wants to cure this plague that's been just decimating her country, and so she's throwing herself into her studies, and she discovers throughout her studies that maybe the origin of this plague is a little darker than originally thought. So this book I had like medium high hopes for. I wasn't really sure. I haven't loved Beth Revis's other stuff, but necromancy, man, I was really about that because the synopsis flat out says like the character might turn to necromancy, blah blah blah. So I was like, I need it. Also, you can tell from the cover, like you can tell it's going to be dark, right? So the thing with this is that it took so long to get to the necromancy that's hinted at from like nearly the beginning that you're like, why is it taking so long? Like, I know that this is going to be the outcome regardless in some way. Get to the fucking death magic. And it just takes its sweet time. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, that's cool that it's showing the character's motivation and why they would turn to it and all the stuff about the plague, but it basically is like a kind of boring medical drama for like most of the book. And then it starts getting into the stuff that everyone really wants and why you would actually be reading this book. So it was really frustrating to read that, and I just felt like the pacing was really off. I just feel like this is what Beth Revis does, because I read her first book in the Across the Universe series, and I feel like it was the same way where it's just like, nothing's happening, and everything that you've been waiting for, and it's like, why? So, yeah, I felt like the characters were a little bit bland. I felt like the plot was pretty bland, and I also was a little bit confused by the world because I don't really know what this world looks like. It's not really clear. So overall, I was pretty disappointed in this book and gave it 1.5 out of 5 stars. I will be doing a full review on this if you want more of my thoughts. And lastly, I did a reread. I reread Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, the second book in the original Grisha trilogy. So I've already obviously read these books and I love them, and with the release of the information about the Grisha TV show, I really wanted to reread this. I was feeling very in the mood with the Eastern European fantasy stuff going on with my reading this month, and I just really wanted to reread this. I flew through this. It was just nice to be back in this world, but I am noticing more things this reread, which was really fun and interesting. I noticed that her writing has improved drastically throughout all the books that she's released. Like, that you just can't compare. The later books in the Grishaverse are just so much more complex and well thought out. But at the same time, I have such a soft spot for this series, and even though there's not a ton of description of even the world, like, it's still very like basic, foundational compared to the later books in the series, in the universe, really, because it's, I mean, they're all like kind of different series, whatever. Even though it's not as complex as that, I can still envision it so clearly. I also was like laughing the whole time because the fandom, myself included, when first reading this series, is so fucking blind because it's so obvious, like, who she's gonna end up with, what her motivations are. Now going back and seeing things, I'm like, why was I so unobservant to all of this before? Why was I in such deep denial about things and about different ships and everything? Why? Like, you know, I was so, from the get-go, all Team Nikolai all the way. And I'm like, Nikolai's barely in this book. The Darkling is barely in this book. This is a book about Alina. The whole series is about Alina. Alina's the main character. People tend to forget that sometimes. And Mal. And Mal, I'm going to tell you something. As somebody who's not, like, someone who I consider a Mal fan, Mal's not even that bad. He's really not. I didn't like him because he's boring. And I don't like Mal. I realize this on reread. I am actually fine with Mal. I'm pretty neutral on Mal now, especially on reread, and because it just helps me to know how things are gonna go and whatever. I don't like Mal because Mal is just like a pretty realistic teenage boy, and I didn't like teenage boys when I was a teenage girl. So why am I gonna like them now? So he is actually really realistic and a decently written character, an actual decent, like, he says funny things. He just pales in comparison to the enigmatic personalities that are Nikolai and the Darkling. That's his crime. Poor guy. And yeah, he's boring. He's still not my choice. You know, I think there's other things, but like, he's not bad. He's not the worst. He's not the villain of the story. The Darkling is. And like, yeah, there's a lot of just things I realized this time around. And the foreshadowing, man, so much of it. So I'm just like, yeah. So I still enjoyed this. I still, in my heart, this book is 5 stars. It's probably still my favorite book in the series, although I'm really interested to see how much I'll feel about Ruin and Rising, rereading that, because I feel like that might go up in my esteem now. I don't know. We will see. I mean, that was like a 4.5 star for me. It was still really high, but this was my favorite in the series. Now, like, overall, this is probably more of like a 4.5 star read, because I've seen like how much her writing has progressed and how like great it is, but still, like, my heart, 5 stars. So that is it for all the books that I read in January. Comment down below, let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!